Okay, so Alexis said that zoos are havens for disease, premature death, and lack of care. But first of all, let me ask you this. Sure, there's diseases in zoos, but would they not exist also in the wild? And premature death? Well, that's rare because in most cases animals live longer in captivity, and I can prove it. And lack of care, well, that's just in some bad zoos where you'll see them in a literal cage, let's say in a dungeon. If you go to the LA Zoo, you know they have a full artificially natural habitat. It's a good thing. But let me tell you all why zoos are good for education, conservation, and research. First of all, out of education, on a scale of 1 to 10, the visitors at the St. Louis Zoo rate their educational experience as a 9.1. Now, that's pretty high. And I think it's a good thing to note that scientists at the Houston Zoo are working with people in Venezuela to save the tapir, an animal related to the rhinoceros that looks a lot like a pig, but it's hunted for its thick hides and is losing its habitat in South America's forests to development. So zoos are a good thing because they're saving these little animals. And let me go back to what Alexis said about zoochosis. Well, what if, maybe they pace around, nod their chin on whatever, but in the wild, they have stress too, like running from something that's gonna eat them. That's worse. I'd rather, just hurt my chin than get eaten. And premature death? Well, if an animal is living fine and there's no extra space needed, then they have smaller brain capacity than us anyway, so, if they're doing okay in their little habitat, that's good for them. They don't need 30 miles to run around, that's just what they get. And she cited something from PETA. I'm not even gonna go into, how it's PETA, but as you all know, they have skewed information, just like Fox News or CNN. And then she talked about how there's that bear sitting in the corner. Well, sure, maybe he's not hunting, but he's conserving energy, being efficient. He's hibernating. Bears hibernate, that's what they do. And then she talked about digital zoos and a robotic elephant. People would rather see the things live in person. And what about if the robotic elephant had a glitch, like it's talking and saying, oh yes, I like to eat whatever elephants eat. Then it just freezes up and spits out something like Arrow 404, elephant discontinued or something. That is not good. Let me go on though about how zoos are good in the role of conservation for these animals. The world around us is changing fast. Species of wildlife are facing global extinction on a massive scale. About 21% of the world's mammal species, 12% of the bird species, and about 33% of all amphibian species are threatened with extinction. Cranes and cheetahs, great apes, and rhinos, and so many more are in trouble. Zoos are in a unique position to make a difference. And another one I should say is the situation facing wildlife is serious. In the past 40 years alone, 52% of the world's wildlife has disappeared from the face of the earth due to habitat loss, poaching, and climate change. Many scientists believe we have single-handedly caused the world's 6th mass extinction of animal species. This comes from Corinne Henn, who is a writer at One Green Planet. So as you can see, zoos might not have the active hunting animals that you'd love to see, or you could watch on a video of like Lion King or something, but no, these are good things. They keep the animals alive and well. They have breeding programs, and they also do research. They help scientists with their research. For instance, research is carried out on captive animals that would not be possible on their counterparts in the wild. The Global Zoo Network provides data sets on life history traits of captive species, such as average litter size, interval between successive litters, and age at maturity which could not be gained in the wild. And this comes from also the dodo, but a different writer in Frontier Gap, that's his name. I didn't make that up. Let's see. And then back to conservation here. Theoretically, keeping animals healthy in captivity means they could be reintroduced to the wild someday. But if an animal really disappears from the wild because of poachers or people destroying its habitat, it's a stretch to think we'd ever be able to send them back and make things good again. This, of course, shows why we need zoos in the first place. This is a haven not for disease, but for the animals that are losing their homes. And going back to research, according to Zoo Atlanta, there is a great deal of interest in applying positive reinforcement training to improving the care and management of captive animals. It is being used to gain the voluntary cooperation of animals in a huge array of husbandry, medical and research procedures, as well as to enrich their environment and improve social relationships. So this proves to me that, give me a second. We can research on these animals, and most zoos will use this to their advantage to have happy animals that even if they're being energy efficient by napping in the corner, they're still good to see, and they are living a happy life in their, so to speak, contained existence. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
You don't cut.
It's okay. And nobody's going to be peeing